Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I'm Darshan Usman. Here are some stories making rounds beyond the continent. To begin the news in the Middle East, where U.S. President Donald Trump has begun a 4-day diplomatic tour of the Middle East, starting in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where he signed a strategic partnership agreement with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Now, the visit, which also includes stops in Qatar and United Arab Emirates, focuses on securing major new investments in the U.S. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump voices hope that Saudi Arabia will eventually recognize Israel in a speech in Riyadh in the presence of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Trump was joined by business leaders, including Elon Musk, at a lavish lunch ahead of the Saudi-U.S. Investment Forum.
My fervent hope, wish, and even my dream that Saudi Arabia, a place I have such respect for, especially over the last fairly short period of time, what you've been able to do, but we'll soon be joining the Abraham Accords. I think it'll be a tremendous tribute to your country.
Now joining me on the news to discuss this is former senior official at the UN, Professor Mukesh Kapila. He joins from Geneva, Switzerland. Thank you so much for joining us on the news, Mukesh.
Happy to join you.
It's a pleasure. Now, can you speak to us on the deal between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, especially the big weapons deal, and how you feel it will affect politics and power in the Middle East?
I think it sends a very powerful signal, not just to the Middle East, but to the whole world. But specifically to the Middle East, it confirms that Saudi Arabia remains the US's preferred lead partner and the senior partner, if you wish, in its relationships in the Middle East, and that also Israel should look out that it has had much of the American attention so far from American politicians, but clearly Israel can't take U.S. support for granted without it being balanced by a partnership with the Arab world as well. So I think it reflects a kind of a recalculation of the nexus of relationships in the Gulf that will flow from it.
Okay. Now, what about the impact of Saudi Arabia's $20 billion investment in U.S. artificial intelligence? What impact will that have on the global tech race?
Well, I think 20 billion sounds like a lot of money, but actually AI development is extremely expensive. At least the American version of AI is very expensive. The Chinese have shown that you can do it much cheaper. But however, getting into the AI market with this investment from Saudi Arabia means that Saudi Arabia and those who are partners of Saudi Arabia will have access to the latest technology, digital technology, that can be used for a variety of purposes, whether it is for surveillance and for activities of security, as it is also for science, technology, and all the beneficial effects that we know. So I think it is going to drag the Saudi Arabia into the center of the AI world and lead to a partnership which I think should benefit both the West, particularly the US, and Saudi Arabia. Whether it affects how it affects the wider Gulf on the AI side, I think it's too early to say. I don't think it'll have much impact there.
Okay. Now, Professor Kapila, how about, we know that it's not directly aimed at Africa, I'm talking about this deal, but how do you think it will affect African economies and its security?
Well, I don't think the deal affects Africa directly at all. However, indirectly sends signals. So what do we know? We know from the way this deal was done is that Trump continues his America First policy, and that he sees security and geopolitical interests through the lens of whether or not it brings benefit to America. So if Africans wish to get on the right side of Trump, they will have to learn from this, and of course they are not in the position to put billions of investment into the U.S. economy, so they'll have to give something else, whether it's minerals, rare earths, or other produce. they'll have to figure out what is it that they offer to the U.S. For the U.S. to take them seriously. Now, on the actual armament side, well, America is the second biggest provider to the U.S. in arms terms after Russia and increasingly China, and France is slowly fading out. However, I think the main thing here is that the Americans are getting to be a bit more open-minded about who they fund. And they're not going to ask necessarily questions about human rights and so on. Yeah. So it does mean that there is some business opportunities out there for American companies if they can get a foothold in Africa, and for African interests, therefore, to be projected in the U.S.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Professor Kapila, for your time.
Thank you.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced on Tuesday that the military will enter Gaza with full force in the coming days as part of an intensive offensive approved by his security cabinet. Now, the operation, named Gideon's Chariots, aims to suppress Hamas, secure the release of hostages, and may involve seizing the entire Gaza Strip and relocating its civilian population to the south. Now, Israel expects up to 50% of Gaza's population to flee during the full-scale assault. Despite the military build-up and planned escalation, Israel has temporarily limited some operations following the release of a U.S. captive, but no ceasefire has been agreed. Humanitarian aid remains blocked amid warnings of severe civilian suffering.
War, Israel allowed humanitarian aid to flow into Gaza and facilitated it. But Hamas stole that aid from the people and earned its money from it. It used it to feed its war machine. It used it to retain its strong position at the expense of the civilian population. If the aid continues to go to Hamas and not to the people of Gaza, the war will continue forever. It will enable aid to go directly to the people. Hamas must not be allowed to get their hands on it. IDF soldiers will not allocate aid. They will secure the perimeter. This plan allows for aid to flow based on international humanitarian law and its principles, which we are committed to. We have reasons why to be skeptical with the current regime, and it gave us, mainly with certain moves it did with regard to minorities in this country, reasons why to be skeptical. But our intentions are good. We want security, we want stability. This is our wish.
Still in the region, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier and Israel President Isaac Herzog on Tuesday met in Jerusalem as part of a series of mutual state visits. Both presidents are marking a significant diplomatic milestone, 60 years of bilateral relations, even as tension surrounding the Gaza war lingers in the background. Now, the two leaders toured the Israeli National Library, highlighting a commitment to cultural and historical ties. Steinmeier arrived in Jerusalem just a day after hosting President Herzog with full state honors in Berlin. At a joint press conference in Germany, both leaders reflected on the enduring relationship that began officially in 1965, just 2 decades after the horrors of the Holocaust. Now, in North America, the United Nations has expressed serious concern over the large-scale deportations of non-nationals from the United States, particularly the hundreds sent to a high-security mega-prison in El Salvador. UN Rights Office spokeswoman Liz Thrussell highlighted worries not only about the harsh conditions detainees face, but also about the legality of their detention without proper hearings. Over 100 Venezuelans deported under the Trump administration's use of the 1798 Alien Enemies Act are reportedly held at El Salvador's Center for Containment Terrorism, a facility designed to hold up to 40,000 inmates. Many deportees have not been allowed to contest their detention, raising human rights alarms. The UN is urging El Salvador to grant access to the detention centers to verify conditions and treatment of those held.
I think we're deeply concerned, precisely given the context, the uncertainty of we don't know what is happening to people, and that would raise concerns indeed that families do not know where their loved ones are, lawyers do not know where they are. In fact, no one knows where they are for certain, and we don't know the legal basis. So that is raising huge human rights concerns indeed. So indeed, given the circumstances, given the risk of the fear of human rights violations being committed, there may well be concerns of enforced disappearance. And of course, that, you're quite right, it is a really serious issue under international human rights law, Nick. We are concerned, of course, about the conditions that they're being held in, but we're really concerned about the fact that they're being held at all.
In Manhattan federal court on Tuesday, Sean Diddy Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, delivered emotional testimony in his ongoing sex trafficking trial. Ventura, visibly pregnant, recounted years of alleged abuse, including being coerced into drug-fueled sex parties orchestrated by Combs. He described a 2016 hotel hallway incident where Combs allegedly assaulted her, with surveillance footage presented as evidence. Now, the defense also cross-examined a former male stripper who recounted 2 incidents where Combs allegedly assaulted Ventura. Combs, 55, faces multiple federal charges and has pleaded not guilty, maintaining that all interactions were consensual. His defense team contends that the video evidence was altered and should be excluded from the trial. The case continues to unfold in federal court. Let's go on a short break. When we return, we'll tell you that amid Ukraine conflict, Zelensky pushes for direct ceasefire talks with Putin. Details of this and more after the break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying. Now we move to Europe, where a major diplomatic moment is on the horizon as Buckingham Palace confirms that French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte will make their first state visit to the United Kingdom this summer. Now, the visit, set for July, signals strengthening ties between London and Paris and comes before a much-anticipated invitation to the U.S. president is acted upon. Our News Central's international correspondent, Afia Hagen, has the details.
It's the ultimate diplomatic honour, and this summer the red carpet will roll out for French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte as they make their first state visit to the United Kingdom. Buckingham Palace has confirmed the Macrons will visit from the 8th to the 10th of July, staying at Windsor Castle as guests of King Charles III. State visits are lavish ceremonial affairs, complete with a carriage procession, military pomp and a state banquet. Foreign Secretary David Lammy says the UK-France summit will also be a key moment for diplomacy, focusing on the economy, border security and international cooperation. It's a continuation of a deepening bond between the King and the French President. The Macrons hosted Charles and Camilla in Paris last September during the King's own state visit. They reunited in Normandy in June 2024 to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day, though that was not a formal state occasion. This is the first French state visit to the UK since President Nicolas Sarkozy came in 2008. But with President Macron now beating his American counterpart, President Donald Trump, to the punch, is a signal that Europe remains a diplomatic priority for the UK. Just last year, the two leaders met again at the European Political Community Summit in Oxfordshire, underlining a growing personal friendship and political alliance. While President Trump has also been extended an invitation by Sir Keir Starmer, no date has yet been confirmed for a state visit. For now, Macron is first in line at Windsor. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
Authorities in London have launched an investigation after a fire damaged the entrance of a property in Kentish Town, formerly occupied by Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Now, the blaze, reported on Tuesday, was swiftly extinguished by the London Fire Brigade. No injuries were reported, although part of the entrance was affected. A 21-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the suspected arson. Police have confirmed that counter-terrorism officers are leading the investigation as a precaution. Inquiries are ongoing to determine whether the incident is linked to another fire reported at the separate North London property associated with the Prime Minister. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has declared he will do everything to ensure a face-to-face meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin taking place in Turkey, with high-stakes ceasefire talks scheduled for Thursday. Now, Zelensky insists that only Putin can guarantee a ceasefire and has dismissed the value of meeting with any other Russian officials. Zelensky plans to meet Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Ankara, but says both leaders are ready to travel to Istanbul if Putin agrees to attend. This meeting would be the first direct negotiations between Zelensky and Putin since 2019 and could mark a major breakthrough in efforts to end Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Тобто в будь-якому випадку ми зробимо все, щоб ця зустріч відбулася. Якщо Путін дійсно готовий не тільки в медіа, а в реальному житті зустрічатись. І тоді на рівні лідерів ми зробимо все, щоб домовитись про припинення вогню. Бо саме з ним я повинен домовлятись про припинення вогню. Бо тільки він це вирішує.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has cautioned Russia that the European Union may impose new sanctions if no significant progress is made towards peace in Ukraine by the end of the week. Speaking in Berlin alongside Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, Merz emphasized that further delays in negotiations will trigger coordinated sanctions with energy exports and financial access among likely targets. The warning follows Ukraine's agreement to participate in ceasefire discussions with Russia in Istanbul. Merz highlighted President Zelensky's readiness to negotiate as a critical opportunity for de-escalation. European leaders, including Merz, view the proposed talks as a final opening for diplomacy before stronger punitive measures are considered.
Wir begrüßen, dass Präsident Zelensky sich persönlich bereit erklärt hat, in die Türkei zu reisen, um dort mit Präsident Putin über den Frieden zu verhandeln. Aber nun ist es wirklich an Putin, dass er dieses Verhandlungsangebot seinerseits annimmt und einem Waffenstillstand zustimmt. Der Ball liegt ausschließlich in Russland. Frieden und Sicherheit in Europa formuliert. Wir werden dem zustimmen und wir werden uns auch für weitere Sanktionen einsetzen für den Fall, dass die russische Staatsführung den Vorschlägen, die wir gemeinsam am letzten Wochenende gemacht haben, ja auch im Namen vieler anderer europäischer Mitgliedstaaten, mit denen wir eng abgestimmt waren, für den Fall, dass die russische Staatsführung dem nicht zustimmt. Wir werden weitere Bereiche in den Blick nehmen, wie etwa den Energiesektor und auch den Finanzmarkt. Wir begrüßen das.
The European Union has confirmed it awarded more than 350 million euros to companies owned by Elon Musk, despite rising political tensions and his outspoken criticism of the bloc's policies. Now, reports say Tesla received 159 million euros in 2023 to support electric vehicle charging infrastructure. In 2024, SpaceX secured a $197 million deal to launch satellites for the EU's Galileo system, following delays with the Ariane 6 launch vehicle. Now, the EU also paid 630,000 euros to X, formerly known as Twitter, for advertising before suspending spending in late 2023. Critics have called for an end to EU funding for Musk-linked ventures, citing his alignment with US President Donald Trump and repeated opposition to European digital laws. In Asia, Pakistan has reaffirmed its commitment to the ceasefire agreed with India after 4 days of intense fighting last week, but warned it will respond firmly to any future aggression from New Delhi. Now, the truce followed a series of missile and drone strikes exchanged between the two nuclear-armed neighbors, triggered by India's Operation Sindoor, which targeted what it called terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistani-administered Kashmir in retaliation for a deadly attack on Hindu tourists in Indian Kashmir. Now, Pakistan denies supporting militants and says the Indian strikes hit civilian areas, resulting in over 50 deaths, including civilians and military personnel. India maintains its military bases remain operational despite some damage. Away from that, police on Tuesday confirms that at least 21 people have died and 10 others remain in critical condition after consuming toxic moonshine in northern India's Punjab state. Now, the incident occurred late Monday across 5 villages in the Amritsar district, where locals drank illegally brewed alcohol laced with methanol, a toxic substance often used to spike cheap liquor to boost potency. Authorities have arrested 9 individuals in connection with the case. A police investigation is ongoing to trace the full supply chain and prosecute those responsible. Now, Punjab Chief Minister has promised strict action, while the tragedy adds to the country's recurring problem of fatalities from illicit alcohol, with 53 similar deaths recorded last year in Tamil Nadu. Well, that's all on Beyond the Continent. Do remember that you may send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You may also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.